Merhaba minim. Sihirli Kitaplar ülkesine hoş geldin. Ben Sihirli Kitaplar ülkesi perisi. Konuşan kitapların heyecan dolu dünyasını benimle keşfetmeye hazır mısın? Konuşan kitaplar bakalım bugün bize neler anlatacak? Hadi gidelim. Little Red Riding Hood. Once upon a time, there was a sweet little girl called Little Red Riding Hood. They called her that because she always went out with the red cape that her grandmother had sewn for her. Little Red Riding Hood loved her grandmother very much. She lived in the middle of the forest. One day her mother told her, "Little Red Riding Hood, you must take this basket to grandmother because she's sick." Her mother had placed some cake, milk, and a jar of honey in the basket. Before she left the house, her mother told her not to linger on the path through the forest and to hurry back from her grandmother's house. Grandmother lived a long way away, and Little Red Riding Hood had a long walk. When Little Red Riding Hood reached the forest, she saw so many flowers on both sides of the path that she forgot what her mother had told her and started to make a posy for her grandmother. "Then she'll be pleased and will get better," she said to herself. When she had finished the posy, the wolf went to meet her.
"Hello, Little Red Riding Hood. Where are you going with so many things?"
said the wolf.
"I'm going to my grandmother's house because she's sick. I'm taking her some cake, milk, and a jar of honey,"
she replied. Little Red Riding Hood continued walking peacefully, but the wolf said,
"If you take the other path with the tall trees, you'll reach your grandmother's house sooner. It's much shorter."
"All right,"
said Little Red Riding Hood.
"Then I'll see grandmother sooner."
The wolf had tricked Little Red Riding Hood to be able to reach the grandmother's house before her. He ran and quickly arrived.
"Knock, knock,"
he called at the door.
"Who is it?"
replied the grandmother from her bed.
"I'm Little Red Riding Hood. I've brought you a basket full of..."
lied the wolf in a high voice.
"Come in, Little Red Riding Hood. The door is open,"
said the grandmother. So the wolf entered the house. He took the grandmother and shut her in the wardrobe. The wolf dressed up in grandmother's clothing, and he even put her glasses on. Then he got into the bed. Now he just had to wait for Little Red Riding Hood to arrive. When Little Red Riding Hood arrived, she was surprised to find the door wide open and said,
Hello, Grandmother. I'm here. I brought you some food and flowers to make you happy.
But nobody answered. Little Red Riding Hood went up to the bed, and when she saw her grandmother, she said,
Grandmother, what big ears you've got.
All the better to hear you with,
replied the wolf in a high voice.
And what big eyes you've got,
said the girl, very surprised.
All the better to see you with,
he replied.
Oh, Grandmother, what a big mouth you've got,
said Little Red Riding Hood with eyes as big as dinner plates. And the wolf jumped out of the bed and shouted,
All better to eat you with.
Luckily, there were some hunters passing through the forest path at that moment.
It's strange to hear shouting from the grandmother's house,
said the youngest hunter.
And so much. We'd better go in and see if she needs something,
replied the other hunter. The men threw the wolf out of the house, and the beast went far away with his tail between his legs. Then Little Red Riding Hood ran to the wardrobe to free her grandmother. What a big hug they gave each other after the shock they'd had. When everything was over, the hunters, grandmother, and the girl sat around the table and peacefully ate what Little Red Riding Hood was carrying in her basket. They had never tasted such a delicious cake with a glass of warm milk and honey. Before leaving, Little Red Riding Hood promised her grandmother never again to linger along the forest path.
I promise, Grandmother,
she said.
I'll always be careful when I go on my own, and I never speak to strangers again.
Her grandmother smiled. She felt better already. Activity: The Grandmother's Cake. Recipe for the cake that Little Red Riding Hood took to her grandmother. Ingredients: 4 eggs, 1 lemon, yogurt, 100 grams of flour, 100 grams of sugar, the grated peel of 1 lemon, 1 sachet of baking powder, 50 grams of pine nuts. Method 1. First, mix the egg yolks with the sugar, flour, grated lemon peel, yogurt, beaten egg whites, and baking powder. 2. When everything is well mixed together, place it in a baking tray lined with some butter and a little flour. Sprinkle some pine nuts on the top. 3. Place the baking tray in the oven, preheated to 180 degrees, and leave it to bake for half an hour. 4. When we see it well toasted, with help of an adult, we will puncture it with a knife, and if this goes out clean, the cake can already be removed from the oven. It will be delicious with a glass of milk.
Evet minim, konuşan kitaplarla bugünkü maceramızın sonuna geldik. Ne zaman istersen beni tekrar ziyaret edebilirsin. Yine gel olur mu? Seni kocaman kucaklıyorum. Görüşmek üzere.